Okay, so now we're on the inside of the museum. I did a quick, I just saw a sign I want to show you guys. I did a quick walk around, and there's some really unique things in here, things that I actually have somewhat of a personal connection to. I didn't realize that it was in here. So I'm really excited to show you guys some stuff, but I just walked through the front doors. Once again, this is a smaller museum. I've been to much larger ones, but sometimes the quantity can be overwhelming. You won't be able to absorb much. This one is a smaller, but has a lot of quality stuff, unique stuff that applies directly here to Edwards Air Force Base. So nothing's classified. We're inside the museum. Anybody could film in here. Unfortunately, for people who aren't military affiliated, if you ever wanted to come here, you will have to be sponsored by somebody in the military by coming through the gate, you know, and they sign you in, you can come to this museum. But if you live anywhere close to this base and you know somebody in the military, I'd highly recommend it. You're gonna see some unique stuff that you won't see in any other museum. So let's start with, I wanna show you this real quick. So we have end of the earth 2 miles, Edwards Air Force Base 4. So I think that is Muroc Dry Lake. And you can see some of these lines are some of the runways they'll use. Here's like the cement pavement taxiway runways flight line area. But when like the space shuttle lands, here's another. This is a really good aerial shot. I don't even know if you can get this on Google Earth. It might be blocked out, but I am not sure. This one right here could be where the shuttle would land. Any of these. And so I guess if you go off the runway and you end up not doing too good, you're not going to hit anything. There's another map of it. Here's some stuff of just what's out here in the Antelope Valley, desert-wise. I'm going to move through this area pretty quick. Actually, let me look at this real quick. U.S. Air Force property. So this is Captain Glenn W. Edwards. Here's who the base is named after. And he died co-piloting the Northrop YB-49, which is that, looks like that flying wing. Is it the flying wing? Yeah, the exotic flying wing bomber prototype. So could be the predecessor to the airframe of what we now know as the stealth bomber. Here's some older, hey, if you guys saw any of my earlier videos, look at that. You guys remember that from an earlier video? And those look really close to the glasses I'm wearing now. Actually, the sunglasses I'm wearing now, I actually got issued when I was an Air Force medevac flyer. They're actually a military issue. I'm gonna probably spend a little more time in here after filming, just to read up on a little bit more of these. But there's some, Hap Arnold. A little bit of trivia about him. He's the only man he's been a general in 2 different branches of the service. He was a general for the Army, for the Army Air Force. Then when the Air Force when the Army Air Corps transitioned to its own branch of service in 1947, he became the general of the Air Force. So he was a general for 2 different branches. U.S. Army Air Force's Muroc, California, Muroc Air Base during World War II. So there's some testing that went on. That is a B-24, B-24 Liberator, heavy bomber. Very, very cool poster. Okay, so one major significant thing is that this is where the sound barrier was recorded being broken by Chuck Yeager. There's a replica of what he used right there. I think Bell was the name of the company building the aircraft that broke the sound barrier. That's how you enter it. Can't be claustrophobic apparently. The X-1. And this was kind of interesting. I believe this is the airframe of a B-29 Super Fortress, and it was these experimental aircraft for breaking the sound barrier were loaded underneath and was dropped from altitude. But let me move on. I want to. God, these old signs are just great. Muroc Air Base, Lancaster 20. There's a gauge thing. All right, let me move on to some of this other stuff. Okay, right above me, actually, this is a replica. I hope I say this right. A Bell X-1. It's never flown. This was actually built from scratch to scale, but it's a replica. A huge wall display of different models of different airplanes. This is, that's one of the flying wings, but I think the one that Edwards passed away on or died on was this one here. I think that's the one that he was a co-pilot on. Very experimental. I'm going to try to go in sequence. We saw the real version of that outside, SR-71. We saw a real version of that one. Oh, when we were outside, I mentioned a U-2. That's what a U-2 looks like when I was talking about the SR-71. There's F-4 Phantom painted in tactical. Now, here's where it gets really cool. So this right here, that's #1 real world YF-22. That is a real world YF-22, the first one used in production, and it's in this museum. Remember when we were outside and I was pointing out that at the air park it was attached to the Corsair? That's actually used for testing to get the pitot tube, which is way out front, as far away from the aircraft as possible, to get a baseline calibrations of what the airspeed, altimeter, barometer, barometric pressure, all those numbers, all that information that the pilots need in the cockpit. And then once they get it, then they put the pitot tube. There it is right there. And there's the aircraft. You know, a lot of times you might see these tags. People use them as keychains now. I have a few removed before flight. What it is, there's certain things that get covered. Sometimes they're pins, sometimes they're covers, but each aircraft has a certain amount. So a pre-flight thing would be, I believe, the crew chief or the ground crew. They would pull these and account for, like, say, if this aircraft specifically had 9 of them, they would hold up saying, "Yep, we got all 9." They would hold up 9 flags to make sure they had all 9. Here's the other side. That is, like I said, a replica of what broke the sound barrier. This is an engine to a moped. Now, what in the world was this before? Oh, the X-15. I'm going to show you that. The X-15. Oh, there's the X-15. Now, what's cool for me is that I was talking to one of the docents here, the volunteers for the museum, and I said, "Hey, when I came out here, look at this little helicopter." I go, when I came out here the first time to Edwards, I was actually still in the Army, and it was 1989, or maybe 1990, 88, 89, or 90, I don't remember. I came out to the museum. It was in a different location, and I said the one thing I remembered was a panel, a sheet panel with a bunch of rivets on it from an accident. And he goes, "Yeah, we have that here." So this thing right here, they had back in, when I came out here in 88, in the old museum, and this is the only thing I remember when I was first here. So apparently, this guy piloting this aircraft, which is that, and I think, is this it too? It's a rendition of it. Apparently crashed. The section of the left horizontal stabilizer was torn away at over 4,000 miles per hour when the third X-15 was lost during re-entry on November 15th, taking the life of Major Michael J. Adams. Oh, unfortunately. So remember I said they were like a spacesuit? Well, there it is. And these guys are flying experimental aircrafts outside the atmosphere. So they're basically spacecrafts, you know, they're geared up for that. And that might have been a predecessor to the SR-71. The front of it definitely looks like the front of the SR-71. And here's the display. So that's kind of cool. I remember seeing that so many years ago. So here's a display of some of the things these guys would wear for experimental, which looks like a spacesuit because they were actually flying out of the atmosphere. So they had to be concerned with concerned with the fire, concerned with pressurization, high altitude, out of the atmosphere type of environments. I'm going to come back for myself after filming and look at closer on that. Now here is lifting body number 1. I believe this is the very, very first one, and this is where it gets interesting too. Now these lifting bodies were tests to predecessors to the space shuttle to see how the design of the space shuttle, how they would land, how they would re-enter in the atmosphere, you know, the way they would glide back down, because the space shuttle is basically a glider with no real propulsion other than directional propulsion. So 1963, engineers used lightweight unpowered lifting body vehicles, prototype. So there it talks about early candidates for a space shuttle configuration. So this isn't original. You're not going to see this anywhere else. Oh man, check this out though. What is this off of? This is a Vulcan. It's a M61A1. I wonder if this is what was on the A-10 outside. The Vulcan was first used on the F-104 Starfighter, F-105, F-106, F-15s, F-16s, A-70s, F-4s, B-52s, B-58s, AC-119, and the C-130 Hercules. They call this a cannon. See why. Look at that thing. There's probably so much stuff in here that I won't be able to even see. But moving on, I want to try to keep this one short. I'm not sure what this aircraft is, but I want to show you something that's really cool. And this is where I say it gets personal. Personal experience. So in there's some cool stuff here. What in the world is that? Oh, I've heard of this. This was instead of having the pilot eject and be by himself, they were testing out an ejectable cockpit. There you go, your own little cocoon. So this whole piece would fly out. This whole thing. Apparently, can you imagine being the guys that test this stuff? Hey, do you want? No, I don't want to do that. You want to be in this thing that has this on the side. If door is jammed, cut off for rescue. This actually, don't know if that's a model or an actual functional test thing. I'll have to ask on that. Okay, so let me, whose uniform is this? It's Fulbert Colonel John Paul Stapp. Fastest man on Earth. I guess he was the one that went in that. I think sometimes you see, like in certain movies, or where he gets he gets launched down a railroad track of sorts to see how fast a human being can go. Although that can be contested with, I just forgot his name, the guy that possibly broke the sound barrier when he parachuted out of a hot air balloon. That's another story. I'll tell you guys that later. All right. No further ado. And what I wanted to point out is this display right here. Okay, so those in the 70s, I grew up watching this show. So this is the $6 Million Man, kind of want to say movie prop. I can scan those codes for more. Oh, look. you can learn more about this. So here's where my story comes into this. So in 1998, I'm working an air show down at Muroc Air Force Base. I was air crew. I was displaying a 141 aircraft with all the medical stuff in it, and we had towed over from our museum an SR-71 static display. It wasn't operational. And when I went up to the static display, there was a guy wearing a, let me get a good backdrop for you guys. There was a guy wearing a full blue flight suit. Blue flight suit, said NASA on it. I'm wearing the green flight suit. And I walk up to him. When I looked at him, he's wearing sunglasses, and his face was severely burned, and his lips were burned. And he didn't talk. He didn't say much. He didn't say anything to me. And I shook his hand, and he had a bunch of books out there that he was autographing. So the SR-71 sitting aside, he's standing there, a bunch of books. So I stood next to him, I took a picture, and when I find the picture, I'll put it on my Facebook page that you guys might, you guys will link to if you're watching the YouTube channel. It's correlated with the Facebook page. So didn't think anything of it. So in the squadron I'm in now, I was working with a U-2 pilot named Steve. And I was talking to Steve about it and telling him my experiences. And Steve says to me, he goes, "You know who you were talking to?" I go, "No, I have no idea. He never said anything to me." He goes, "That was the test pilot that is portrayed in the beginning of the $6 Million Man. The one they're showing that got in that wreck." What was being seen, if you ever watch the $6 Million Man or go on YouTube, what you're seeing is this scene right here. That's the actual footage of the accident, and that's what you see in the beginning of the $6 Million Man. And what that is one of those lifting bodies I was showing you earlier on the other side. It's on the other side of the museum now. But that is one of those lifting bodies that I was showing you. So this guy, I don't even know his name, the real dude, he was dropped in a lifting body from altitude, whatever the altitude was, from like a B-29 Super Fortress. And he was dropped, he was gliding down, testing out the viability of the re-entry for a predecessor to what the space shuttle design would be. And he crashes at Muroc Dry Lake, right where we're at today. And that footage is then used, and apparently it burned and it got lit somehow. And that footage was extracted and used in portraying the $6 Million Man, the TV show episode. So I had no idea who the real guy was. I just used to watch this as a kid for entertainment, but I stood next to him. I was standing right next to him. I didn't buy the book, didn't get his autograph, but I got a picture of me and him standing right next to each other. He didn't say anything to me, and he didn't, I guess I could have bought the book and read about him, which I still may do, but the book is really pricey and it's hard to find. But I thought that was so cool. I told the docent about that experience, and he goes, "Well, hold on, we have a display of it." So there you go, Steve Austin as the $6 Million Man, Flight Research Center from NASA. So there's a quick explanation of what the $6 Million Man was all about. But that was just an unbelievable experience for me to actually talk to the guy. I'd not even known who it was. I was standing right next to him, right next to the dude that they portrayed the movie The $6 Million Man off of. There's a lot more information over here in this. Like I'm telling you, if you get a chance to get out here, I'm going to jump on the other side of the camera and so I can see what you guys are seeing. So if anyone says throw down the gauntlet, look at that thing. Get backhand by that, that'll put you in the hospital. These are all heraldry things here, customs. I'll probably read more about this stuff. Look at this guy. I wonder if I can mount that on my KLR 650. Talk about your mods, huh? Put a modification on that. I could probably split lanes really easy. Something like that. This looks like a little rendition, little portrayal of the Royal Air Force. I guess they were out here. 17th Squadron. Okay, I'm reaching right about 20 minutes. This stuff I can find very interesting. Some of you may not. I just thought how personal some of the effects were of the lifting body, the space shuttle. I don't know if I mentioned that to you guys, but I saw the space shuttle land here. I saw the Endeavour land here. Here's another briefing room that. Oh, look at this. I gotta bring some of my patches in here. You donate your patches, and I guess it probably prevents, Air Force is notorious for leaving their mark on stuff, so it prevents people from wanting to put their stickers or zappers. Like, hey, if you want some notoriety of you guys being here, put your patch in here. We'll put it up on the wall. I've donated some of the 701st patches to places like USOs and stuff, but looks like they would show some movies in here. Handprints. Well, that's about it. You know, it's really exciting for me to be here. I've driven past it so many times. It probably should get more visitation than it does, but it's really cool. So thanks for following along, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know I get really excited talking about Air Force stuff. It's the first time I broke away from the KLR and the Route 66. Although I'm wearing my Route 66 hat and a Route 66 shirt, but broke away for a while just to show you some really unique things that you'll only find out here at the Edwards Air Force Base Flight Museum. But unfortunately, if you're not military, you won't be able to get in here. All right, don't forget to like, subscribe, get out there on your motorcycle and ride, and remember, life's a journey, so make your journey, no, I said that wrong, life's an adventure. So make your journey a good one. Have a great day, YouTube. Bum, bum, bum.